I'm going to be presenting the results of this survey that the IDB did in conjunction with the PSOJ. Can I just first see a show of hands of anyone that answered this survey? It was conducted May to June of last year. Anyone here participate in the survey? I got Chris. All right. Okay. So we'll get you next time. And first, just a bit about why we did this survey. And to quote a very wise panelist who you'll hear from in a little bit, Lieutenant Colonel Sterling, he says, cybersecurity is a team sport, right? So even though the survey is about cybersecurity beliefs, perceptions, and practices within firms, you all, of course, exist in an ecosystem of which other businesses are part, organizations like the PSOJ are part, you interact with government, and IDB and organizations like ours play a role as well. So just a little bit about the survey. It was conducted between May and June of last year through the PSOJ's listserv, and thank you to the PSOJ for helping make this happen. So the PSOJ's listserv has about 300 members, which includes some industry associations, which makes that number a little bit bigger. We got 105 complete responses, which is not bad as far as these kinds of surveys go. It was conducted online. So what I want you to keep in mind as you see these numbers is that this is not a representative sample, but it's a useful sample because you could consider this perhaps a best case scenario. First of all, the PSOJ is not representative of all the businesses in Jamaica, of course. And then those that answered were probably those that are the most interested in the topic of cybersecurity, right? And that interest might likely translate into being better prepared. So think of these numbers as the best case scenario as we go through them. And just, as you know, you'll get this presentation, so don't worry about seeing the numbers here. Just want to show that we got a pretty good cross-section of businesses of different sizes from different sectors. And the first thing that we wanted to know is how exposed are you? And of course, you know, the more you use the internet, the more you use computers, the more you depend on data, the more exposed you are. And, well, everyone that answered this survey is quite exposed. Just about everyone uses the internet, and everyone has a website, most have social media profiles, and nearly half have their own mobile applications. So this is really intensive use of internet-dependent technologies. And on the right, you see services, internet-based services that are used by firms. Just about everyone uses email. You go all the way down the list, and you see use of the cloud, right? Okay, so here comes the first contrast. Everyone is using these internet-based services, which means that just about everyone is exposed to cyber risk. Now, how many of these firms have people dedicated to cybersecurity? Well, not many. Not many. So just half have a person that has cybersecurity in their job description. A little under half use cybersecurity, external cybersecurity providers, and about 30% have no cybersecurity professionals, internal or external. We also asked about the availability of talent, because some might say, I would love to have a cybersecurity person on my team, but I just can't find anyone, right? Because the talent is scarce and in high demand. So we asked about hiring of these professionals, and just under 30% of the firms said that in the past year they had intended to hire a cybersecurity professional, the 28%. And of them, approximately 2/3 effectively hired someone. And of those that hired a cybersecurity professional, of just about 1/3 of those professionals were women. So here we can see a couple of interesting things. One is that there is unsatisfied demand for cyber talent. 1/3 of those firms that wanted someone didn't get someone. And also there's an important gender gap. in the cybersecurity professionals that were hired. All right, this is kind of small, don't worry about it, I'll walk you through it. We asked about the different actions that firms have taken in the recent past to protect their data and their systems, and going from the most common to the least common. So the most common actions is relatively easy. Most of you probably have it on your personal computers as well, as an antivirus, right? You buy a subscription, you do a couple clicks, and it's done. And now, near the bottom of the list, actually second from the bottom, I would like you to focus on one thing, is these phishing campaigns. Now, does everyone know what a phishing campaign is? Yes, I see a lot of nodding heads. All right. So, as Colonel Sterling and other experts will often say, people are the weakest link in any cybersecurity protection chain, right? And what that means is that employees in your organizations, perhaps you yourselves, might see an email come in that looks like from a party that maybe you know, maybe even says Microsoft or it says Simtai on it, but someone is just spoofing that name and says, please click on this link to renew your license, right? You click, you're done. You're done. You've lost control of your system, or maybe you've let someone inside. So I find it interesting that just about everyone is super exposed. Remember, these are the most internet exposed companies in Jamaica probably, and only half are conducting phishing campaigns. Let's take a look at the context in which these actions are taken. Cybersecurity policy and an incident response plan. The policy defining your posture, how you are going to protect yourselves, your data, your customers' data, your protocol, your access controls, all of those things. And just about 60% have one of these policies in place. And a lower percentage than that, just over half, have an incident response plan. What that means is, what are you going to do if you learn that you've been hacked? So about half say, well, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. And now, an interesting nuance on this is, well, of course, you all interact with many other businesses all the time. And more in those interactions, you're providing access to your systems and your data, therefore, your customers' data. And those interactions entail risks, because if their systems are compromised and your systems are connected to theirs, well, then your systems might be compromised as well. And only 34% of firms have practices or policies in place to deal with those risks of the connections that you may have with other businesses. Now, we also asked about your direct experience with cyber attacks and the reporting around it. So just under 1 in 10 of these firms reported that they had knowledge of a cyber attack that had happened in their company in the past 3 years. So this is a pretty low incidence. But I want to make emphasis on this as having knowledge of a cyber attack, because it wouldn't be surprising, given the relatively spare efforts that I documented on the previous slides, that many firms are completely unaware of the things that are happening in their systems. And let's remember that not all cyber attacks are these big dramatic events where someone comes in and there's a skull and crossbones that blacks out your computer screen, right? A cyber attack can also be someone coming in, snooping around your systems, maybe taking a piece of data, taking some photos, whatever, not touching anything, and then just leaving, right? But that can still be harmful to you, your business, your customers. A relatively good finding, positive finding, is that just about everyone, nearly 90%, said they would report a cyber attack if it were to happen. And the most common place that they would turn to is they would get Colonel Sterling's personal cell phone and call him up. No, just kidding. They would report it to JASCERT, which of course Colonel Sterling runs. And After that, they were reported to the JCF and to MOCA, which were all quite fine options. As the commissioner indicated, there's oftentimes quite a big gap between perception and reality in these issues of data protection and cybersecurity. So we wanted to understand a little bit about those gaps. So we saw that just around 40% of firms surveyed said that a cyber incident, a cyber attack, is unlikely, right? Which, if you look at any of the data for Jamaica and for the world, is a really naive perspective, right? Because these cyber attacks are becoming increasingly easy to execute and thus are increasing exponentially. So what I would have hoped is for everyone to say that a cyber attack is likely. It's likely that someone will try to get into your system. It's just a matter of how well you can repel that attack or recover from it. And yet, on the other side of things, just about everyone said, I am super prepared should there be a cyber attack. 83% of businesses said they're confident in their ability to respond to a cyber attack. Now, remember, just a few slides prior, that under half of the firms said they had an incident response plan. So what I see in this is a classic case of excessive optimism. Undue overconfidence in your ability to respond. Right. So you're not taking steps, you're not doing phishing, you don't have a policy, you don't have an incident response plan, and yet, by God, trust your data with me because I will take care of it. All right, so to close out on the data reporting, also just two results from a separate but related survey about data protection that was conducted by the PSOJ around the same time, which just asked, how aware are you, PSOJ member firms, of the imminent entry in vigor of the Data Protection Act, which happened last year? Just about everyone said, yes, yes, I'm aware it's coming. And 44% of firms said, no, no, I'm not prepared. So taking a step back, these are our findings in general. Just about all the firms we surveyed, and remember, these are the most cyber aware, the most internet dependent firms in Jamaica. They use these internet-based services, but they don't have a lot of things in place. Also, there are several important missing pieces. There's missing policies, there's missing incident response plans, and there's a number of useful and important tools that are not being employed by these firms. Although a relatively small proportion of these firms said that they've experienced a cyber attack recently, I would question the actual awareness of those firms of their own systems, given the relatively weak posture that we previously documented. Okay, so what do we do about this? These findings suggest some general recommendations. I'm going to give you some general things, a long list of specific things, and then some even more resources, so you'll have no excuses. You cannot walk out of this presentation and said, well, Ben just scared the bejesus out of me, but didn't tell me what to do. No. So here are some things that you can do. First is to know where your organization stands. There are a multiplicity of self-assessment tools that are either free or low cost that you can do. And in so doing, become aware of your cyber risks that will vary based on the nature of your business. Also, remember that government can be a partner to you. There are a number of services regarding information sharing, in particular, and also incident response, although I'll let the experts from government get more into details of what they can do for you. But it's important to know that you're not alone, nor should you be alone. The lack of sharing of information really gives your cyber adversaries the upper hand. And lastly, and this is where it hurts in your pocketbook, is to invest in cybersecurity, right? But if you run some numbers, I'm sure you'll come out on the positive side. Say, how much of my business depends on the internet, on my data, on my systems? What would be the financial loss to me if I were to lose access to this data, if my data were to be corrupted? And then look at the offerings out there on the market and see how much they cost. And I'm pretty sure the cost benefit will end up looking positive for you. All right, here's a set of specific recommendations. I'll just highlight a few, but you can peruse all of them on your own time. One at the top is employee training and awareness for phishing and other types of awareness, like good practices, locking your computer when you leave, things like that. Because remembering that people are almost always the weakest link in your cyber posture. And depending on your business, especially if you have a high-dollar business that's highly exposed, you might want to think about a cyber insurance policy. Oh, this is quite specific. And lastly, you'll see it when you get this, there's some recommendations from global authorities on the topic, from Israel, from the EU, and from the United States. And all of these recommendations are tailored at businesses, specifically SMEs. That's it for me, and feel free to approach me afterwards. Thank you very much.